Today we're taking a sidestep from our usual material study to think about architecture designed to point practitioners to something abstract, even immaterial. We're turning to the spectacular architecture of the mosques of the Middle East and Southern Europe. Our class objectives today include the following art historical tools. We'll do an introduction to geometry, pattern, and abstraction. And as I mentioned, our material study is something different. Today, we're looking at how to convey the immaterial. The architectural styles we'll cover are three key mosque plans: the Hypostyle Mosque, the 4E1 plan, and I've got the Hypostyle there twice, but that's not what we'll be doing. Particular sites, we're going to look at the Suleimani Mosque in Istanbul, the mosque/cathedral at Cordoba, the Jame Mosque in Iran, as well as the Shah Mosque there, and the Hagia Sophia also in Istanbul. Often the works that we are about to discuss are grouped together under the term Islamic architecture. But what is meant when we say Islamic architecture? While Christian or Buddhist architecture, for example, are terms used to describe particular discrete places of worship, the term Islamic architecture, for some reason, is used to describe all of the architecture built in regions where Islam is the dominant, but not the only religious practice. Why is that the case? It's because this term is a 19th century invention, and it was used to consolidate rule and influence, much in the way that the term Italian Renaissance is used to describe a place that wasn't even called Italy yet at the time. Nor was the term Renaissance used by the movement's constituents, artists, or authors. Sometimes the works in the region we're discussing were created for patrons of other belief systems. Sometimes the architecture we're looking at is designated to be outside religious spheres of influence altogether. So how can we designate what we're talking about without making things even more confusing and inaccurate? To be more precise, though certainly not precise enough, we might instead say the architecture of the Middle East, or the architecture of Islamic mosques in Turkey, Spain, and Iran. What I'm trying to distinguish here is the common practice of calling all architecture in Iraq Islamic architecture, when much of it most certainly is not. Grocery stores of Iraq, for example, are not Islamic architecture. They are grocery stores in Iraq, where some of the practitioners happen to be Muslim. We want to tune in on this type of language in the same way that we have used and will continue to use the phrase the art and architecture of the Americas rather than Latin American art and architecture. We want to take this same type of care when we talk about the architecture of the Middle East. So today, in our progressive investigation of the architecture of the Anthropocene, we're looking at geometry. Why geometry? Is it a thing like mud or brick or cliff sides or trees or any of the material studies we've done so far? Is it a thing of nature or of human intervention? Like each object or material type we've examined so far, we're looking at a partnering of something real, solid, and materializable that exists in the world through this same lens of human appropriation, or to put it more gently, co-creation. Is geometry that same type of thing? As we move through and attempt to answer that question, a few more questions arise. For example, how do you visualize something thought to be or meant to be beyond the visible, beyond the visual? In that attempt, why might figurative arts be problematic or get in the way? Figurative arts meaning figures of the body. So what tools are at our disposal to depict entities like beauty, power, harmony, purpose, or the very acts of creation and creating? When we think about geometry in this way, what other roles does geometry play that we're not considering, that might problematize our definition? As we begin to think about mosque architecture in particular, geometry plays such a key role in the attempt to glorify the divine, to make it clear that that divine entity is set apart from the human realm. And over the centuries, there has been a change in evolution around the way that human figures and geometry have been used in different times at different measure to convey that difference, that abstraction, that otherworldly quality that mosques are designed to evoke amongst the people who enter them. We can think about this in religious terms, as we have been doing, and in architectural terms. But it's also important to remember that this is the way that some of the most prestigious, most rigorous physicists of the 20th century also think through this difference between things that are concrete, things that are tangible in front of us, and things that are abstract but still existent. The theoretical physicist Richard Feynman, for example, has this very powerful quote on this point. He says, "It's really quite impossible to say anything with absolute precision unless that thing is so abstracted from the real world as not to represent anything real." Take a minute with that. What's he getting at? When Feynman gave this answer, he was actually struggling to convey a very important concept in physics. One that the closer you came to creating what you thought would be a very precise model, the farther away you got from the thing you're actually trying to describe. That same difficulty, that same tension is present in our consideration of geometry and abstraction in the mosques of Iran, Spain, Turkey, and many places elsewhere that we won't have time to look at today. Take a second with what we're looking at in front of us. Apart from this beautiful image, there is a certain geometry that we can pinpoint, a couple of different types of geometry. The practice behind this image is that one of the 5 pillars of Islam requires every Muslim who is able to do so to perform the Hajj, or Great Pilgrimage, at least once in their lifetime. And multiple parts of the Hajj require pilgrims to make tawaf, which is a 7 times counterclockwise movement around the Kaaba, that black, white, gold, rectangular, squarish, cuboid figure that we're seeing in the middle. Take a minute with this. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you think when you see it. But more crucially, what is going on with that Kaaba at the center? What role does it play? As you think that through, I want you to move on and watch a clip that I'll have embedded in the module for this section. Watch at least the first 8 minutes. I'm going to really push you to watch the first 10 because I think there's a 2.5 minute intro that is a little to the side of what we're talking about. But this documentary, powerful and amazing. You're welcome to watch the whole thing now or at any other time. It's available for streaming through ZSR. So what you'll do is you'll go to ZSR's website, do a search for the title, which is The Hidden Art of Islam. Once you've entered that search, you're going to get a lot of different options, but scroll down to the film section of that search response. There, I think the first option you'll see is The Hidden Art of Islam. Click on that. That'll take you to the library's entry. Scroll to the bottom of that entry and click the streaming video link. You might have to enter your Wake credentials, but after that, you're in. All right, enjoy the video and then catch up with me in the next clip afterwards.